Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We'll be speaking with Dr. Juan Vera, CEO of Marker Therapeutics, to talk about the Apollo trial that's investigating MT-601 as a treatment for patients with lymphoma. Welcome to Health Professional Radio. Dr. Vera, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Tell us a bit about yourself and about Marker Therapeutics and the work that you're doing there.
Sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Marker Therapeutics, and I'm the CEO of the company. This technology was developed at Baylor College of Medicine, and at the time, actually, I was an associate professor there. So it, for me, has been really fascinating seeing the technology advance from early stage now into the private sector. I think that the advantage of basically seeing this is seeing the trajectory of this technology from early stage clinical trials into studies now that have the objective of advancing these therapies to a point of commercial approval. I'm a medical surgeon by background, but I have been working in immunology at Baylor College of Medicine since 2004. Fascinated by the clinical space and now the therapeutic opportunity and value of these technologies to be able to save people's lives.
This technology is dealing with T-cell-based immunotherapies. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. What we do is this is an immunotherapy approach. However, a lot of people are familiarized with CAR T cells. I think that especially because those are the therapies that have come to a point of approval. From a distance, it's the same approach in the sense that you basically are extracting cells from an individual, in many cases the patient, which then are manipulated in the laboratory to provide them with a killing potential or anti-tumor properties, and then the cells are given back to the recipient or patient. So from that perspective, it's in essence the same. Now, what it makes this therapy different than CAR T cells is basically the way that the cells are manufactured, the way that we enable the cells with killing capabilities, and also the ability of these cells to be able to recognize multiple components present within the tumor, right? So unlike CAR T cells that they're able to recognize only one antigen or one epitope present within the tumor, our technology, our multi-TAA technology, is capable of recognizing multiple antigens and multiple epitopes present within the cancer cells. So from that perspective, it's far more difficult for the cancer cells to avoid the recognition of the immunotherapy that is provided to these patients. So we believe that this is one of the elements that makes our approach very different, and is the ability of those cells, of our T cells, to recognize the cancer from multiple angles, making it much harder for them to develop or evolve mechanisms of resistance.
Is Marker Therapeutics pursuing treatments for blood cancers as well as solid tumor cancers?
That's an excellent question, and the short answer is yes, we are. One of the things that we have seen, and this came from the earlier Baylor studies, is that we actually have seen early signal of efficacy in both hematologic malignancies and solid tumors. So as an aggregate between the Baylor patients enrolled with this technology and Marker, we have treated over 200 patients. We have seen very good profiles of safety from the administration of this drug, and we have seen some early signal of efficacy in both hematologic malignancies and solid tumors. Under the company umbrella, we are advancing this technology, and we currently have 3 approved INDs, one IND in AML, one in lymphoma, which is the one that you referred to in terms of the Apollo study, and one IND approved in pancreatic cancer. The interest in pancreatic cancer is derived of some earlier clinical data derived out of Baylor, where we were able to observe some promising clinical results, even in pancreatic cancer. So to answer your question, yes, we're pursuing both, and I think that this technology has the capability of providing clinical benefit in both, not just hematologic malignancies, but also solid tumors.
Tell us a little bit more about the Phase 1 Apollo trial for the treatment of lymphoma patients that have relapsed after CAR T-cell therapy.
Sure. That actually is perhaps the study that I'm the most excited. And the reason why is because I consider this study to be a high-risk, high-reward for the company. And let me explain why I mean that. The reason I consider this to be a high risk is because we're basically going after a very difficult group of patients. We're going after patients that have lymphoma, that have been treated with CAR T cells, in many cases CAR CD19, and patients that have failed, right? So you're talking about a group of patients that are a very long and end of the line in terms of the treatment options. Mm-hmm. After patients have been treated with CAR CD19 and they have failed, they can be enrolled into our study. The reason we want to go into that difficult clinical space is because that will demonstrate, without a doubt, the clinical capability of our product to be able to eliminate cancer cells even at that latest stage of the disease. And I think that would be a very powerful message to clinicians, to patients, that this product actually works. That is the reason that I consider this clinical study high risk. Now, I can tell you that from previous clinical studies, we have already seen that this product works very well in patients that have lymphoma and have Hodgkin and not Hodgkin lymphoma. And we published that those findings a few years back. Now, the difference from these studies that were published is that these were in patients that were CAR naive, right? So I'm referring to prior to CAR administration. Now, the difference there, what makes this study now different is that we are going to be testing a very similar type of product in group of patients after CAR relapse. Now, it's going to be much challenging. However, the element that it is promising is that we have recently reported our first patient treated in this Apollo study, which is basically treating patients that have failed CAR CD19. And our first patient, we already reported after treatment with MT-601 had a complete response. So I think that even though it's a high-risk patient population, has the opportunity to be able to demonstrate the clinical value of our therapy and hopefully pave the way for a path for approval.
Are there any other indications that Marker Therapeutics is hoping to explore? And then give us a website where our listeners can learn more.
As I mentioned before, the company is exploring other clinical indications, including AML and pancreatic cancer, as well as an off-the-shelf clinical program. I think that the study that I'm the most excited about, as I mentioned, is the lymphoma study, given the fact that this product has the potential for approval in the short term. The AML study is a study that will demonstrate the potential of this technology in the off-the-shelf setting. I think that basically is something that will be very powerful, given the fact that many people have seen that the patient-specific manufacture of this type of product, in many cases, presents a bottleneck to be able to provide this therapy to a larger patient population. So that is going to be something that is going to be very exciting to follow up. And finally, as I mentioned, basically start treating patients in pancreatic cancer. I think that if we're able to recapitulate the results from the earlier Baylor studies and be able to see some level of efficacy in pancreatic cancer, it will be very meaningful for the technology as a whole. So in general, you're talking about multiple clinical studies with great clinical promise and the possibility of this technology to really transform how patients are treated and being able to provide a clinical option that it is safe, that it is really capable of providing patients in remission and hopefully for a long period of time.
And a website where we can learn more, please.
Yeah, our website is www.markertherapeutics.com.
Dr. Vera, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio, and I'm looking forward to another conversation with you.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Juan Vera. Audio copies of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au, also at Anchor, Spotify, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.